modern civilization has desensitized people. And the last of the old growth is a representation of the last of that innocence. Looking back, we revered particularly the red cedar because of its all-covering providence for our shelter and mobility needs, either canoes and the longhouses. And it was also a revered thing for its spiritual presence and its guidance.
On Canada's west coast tower some of the most magnificent forests on Earth, the old-growth coastal temperate rainforests of British Columbia. With its heavy rainfall and mild climate, trees can grow as tall as downtown skyscrapers and live to 2,000 years old here. They are among the largest and oldest living things to have ever existed in Earth's history. And no other ecosystem in Canada has spawned as much passion for its protection as these old-growth forests do. These forests of ancient red and yellow cedars, hemlocks, amabilis fir, Douglas fir, Sitka spruce, and bigleaf maples are more structurally complex and diverse than the second-growth tree plantations that they're being replaced with, and which don't replicate the original old-growth forests.
When these forests are logged, the second-growth forests that replace them are profoundly different in their structure and composition than the old-growth forests that they've replaced. And if these forests are managed on a 60-year rotation, let's say, to log them every 60 years, these second-growth forests will be more profoundly different from the old-growth forests than anywhere else in North America. People have argued, and I would strongly support the concept, that logging old-growth forests on the coast here can in no way be considered sustainable resource management.
Their unique features make them home to species that need them to survive and which are headed to extinction as second-growth forests replace them. These include the marbled murrelet, a seabird which nests in old-growth canopies, mountain caribou, which winter in old growth in BC's inland rainforest, and spotted owls on BC's southwestern mainland coast. There were once thousands of spotted owls in BC. Today, in 2021, there are literally just 3 left in BC's wilds. Unbelievable. Old-growth forests are vital for many other reasons too. Diverse First Nations cultures evolved over millennia in ancient forests and used the monumental cedars for dugout canoes, longhouses, and totem poles, and fish the salmon and hunt the elk. The loss of old-growth forests is the loss of culture. Old-growth forests provide clean water, including for Vancouver and Victoria, and for wild salmon, a keystone species. Old-growth temperate rainforests store more carbon per hectare than even tropical rainforests do. Logging them releases most of this stored carbon, and the ensuing second-growth tree plantations never resequester the full amount of released carbon, which would take at least 200 years. Old-growth forests are vital for tourism and recreation. People come from all around the world to see the spectacular old-growth giants in BC. They're not coming to see clear-cuts and tree plantations. Despite their distinctive qualities, old-growth forests that are centuries to millennia in age are being replaced by tree plantations that are relogged every 50 to 80 years, never to become old-growth again. Thus, old-growth logging isn't a renewable activity under BC's system of forestry. It's really a form of forest mining. A century of industrial logging has decimated old-growth forests, eliminating well over 90% of the higher productivity stands where the trees grow the fastest and the biggest, and astoundingly 99% of the very highest productivity stands with the largest forest giants. These forest giants are so scarce now that to cut them down is like coming across a pod of great whales or a herd of elephants and slaughtering them all. It's unethical and unnecessary, given that second-growth alternatives dominate the forested land base now. Today, the vast majority of the remaining old-growth forests in BC, 80%, consists of small, stunted old-growth trees with little to no timber value, growing on low-productivity sites like bogs, steep rock faces, and cold subalpine elevations. This fact is not lost upon the timber industry and BC government, who include these vast tracts of stunted, small trees in their statistics on how much old growth remains and how much is protected, making it seem like there's no problem that lots of old growth remains. It's like including vast amounts of monopoly money with your real money, then claiming to be a millionaire. So why stop spending your real money? Most forests in BC are second growth now. If the BC government implemented incentives and regulations to foster a sustainable, value-added second-growth forest industry to create more jobs, then the remaining old-growth forests could be protected while sustaining or even enhancing forestry employment levels in BC. The transition to a completely second-growth forest industry is inevitable when the last of the endangered old-growth trees are cut, but we need to make that transition now, while these forest giants still remain. Now, at the 11th hour, there's increasing frustration at the BC government's continued heel-dragging, PR spin, and consultations about the previous consultations. This talk and log approach is their attempt to buy time for the status quo of old-growth liquidation, which will ultimately result in negotiations over big stumps. The growing public frustration has led to a revival in the war in the woods in BC.
The world needs to see that this is so important that people are willing to put their bodies on the line. I do believe firmly that this really shows not only the world, but also the communities and our government and industry that there is no more social license for this type of behavior. You know, I've spent a lot of time trying to get people out to experience these forests for themselves, because I feel like until you're in it, you really don't understand. So that's another reason why I feel like this type of grassroots direct action movement is an important piece in the bigger puzzle of creating social change.
If the BC government is serious about finally ending this conflict, they need to act fast. They need to fully get on board the international momentum to expand protected areas to avert the extinction and climate crises. They need to make the deferral and protection of high productivity or monumental old-growth forests, the ecological heart of the ancient forests, central to their mandate, along with other most at-risk old growth like the oldest, most intact, and rarest ecosystems. Old-growth forests are overwhelmingly on the unceded territories of diverse First Nations across BC. New protected areas cannot be established without First Nations consent. It's vital that the BC government provide the critical funding to support First Nations old-growth protection initiatives.
The Mears Island Wanachus Hiltuis Tribal Park was declared in 1983 or 1984, and our nation has since then declared all of our traditional territory a tribal park in recent years. I could talk all day about uses of the tribal park and how it benefits our community in helping me learn my language and helping us do cedar bark weaving, and how it feeds us in different ways and how it inspires songs for our community. But along with that is our responsibility to it as people of this place. We have a responsibility to it.
A provincial land acquisition fund is also needed to purchase and protect old growth on private lands. And all limits or caps on timber supply impacts that conservation policies can have must be removed. If the BC government doesn't act now, we'll not see the likes of these ancient forests again. There's no second chance here, and this is a time-constrained issue. It takes a large-scale, broad-based movement of diverse people to effect fundamental social and political change. Your help is vital to make this happen. Please speak up now. Of all times, this is the time.
We're back to another big war in the woods to save what is precious to all British Columbians, and I think on Vancouver Island, this is the last stand for the ancient forests. The big old giants will be gone forever unless we act now.
In the end, perhaps the most fundamental reason why ancient forests are so important is because more than any other ecosystem, they're a catalyst to shift human consciousness. Their sheer grandeur and magnificence of their towering ancient giants, like nature's cathedrals, seem to imbue in people a sense of humility, to know that we're part of something much bigger and greater than ourselves. And it's that sense of humility that's vital to help us learn the respect and restraint needed to develop an ecologically harmonious society, connected to the much greater community of life upon which all our fates depend.